WandaVision Episode 8 dropped today, and yes, it still continues to be the coolest MCU thing, well, ever. Although the series' 8th episode may not have had a sitcom motif or anything like that, there are still plenty of goodies eagle-eyed viewers may have been able to spot had they been paying particular attention. There will of course be major spoilers ahead, but I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are 6 Easter eggs from WandaVision Episode 8 explained. Number 6. The Salem Witch Trials. The first and most immediate reference to be found in this week's episode is the location of Salem and of course the infamous witch trials that took place there in the late 17th century. The MCU opts to put its own spin on the event here though, showing a coven of witches as they attempt to execute Agatha Harkness for practicing dark magic. In real life, the Salem witch trials were enacted by a Puritan colony in Massachusetts and was emblematic of the wider European craze that reached its peak in the early 1600s and led to the deaths of tens of thousands of women. In the comics, Agatha was actually involved in the witch trials, although not in the way that WandaVision depicts them here. In the comics, Agatha's own coven is actually persecuted by the Puritans, but in one of her darker moments, she actually willingly sacrificed members of her own coven to make them quote-unquote stronger. She later settled in New Salem, which is located in modern-day Colorado, and it was a secret magical community. But if you would like to learn more about Agatha and her history, make sure to check out the video we just did on her, which is live on What Culture right now. Number 5. Talking to Scratchy. After familiarizing the viewer with Agatha's origins, the episode whisks us back to the present day, where Agatha lays out all of her motivations to Wanda about how she wants to learn her powers and how she created the Hex. Before she gets to any of that though, she picks up her own pet rabbit, Scratchy, and talks to him after the animal makes some noises, saying, "I know, she does seem shocked to meet the real us, doesn't she?" Others have already pointed out how Scratchy the rabbit may have been a not-so-subtle callback to Agatha's own son in the comics, Nicholas Scratch, but this feels like our biggest confirmation yet that there's more to the rabbit than just whiskers and fluffiness, especially when he straight up demolishes that bird like a descendant of the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Now, it's unclear for definite who Sir Scratchy really is, but if it is Agatha's son, there may yet be another evil magic user in the MCU's horizon. In the comics, Nicholas Scratch stayed in New Salem after Agatha left to hang around mere mortals and then took control of the colony himself, turning them against his mother and setting in forth all sorts of evil schemes that would later involve the Fantastic Four. Number 4. The origins of Wanda's coping mechanisms. One of the earlier questions that people had regarding WandaVision was why exactly Wanda chose to manifest her own version of Westview as different sitcoms throughout the decades. She grew up in war-torn Sokovia in Eastern Europe, remember, and so the operating assumption for many was that she wouldn't have had access to all the TV shows that defined American television throughout the 20th century, at least not until she arrived with the Avengers after Age of Ultron. But this is where things get particularly emotional, because the episode reveals that Oleg, Wanda's father, was selling DVDs of these series in Sokovia, but that before each sale, he and his family would watch a series of their own choosing to better help them learn English. When Wanda's mother Irina opens up his suitcase, you can spot all the shows that have inspired WandaVision in one way or another, including I Love Lucy, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, and my personal favorite, Malcolm in the Middle. We also see Wanda actually watching an episode of Malcolm in the Middle at the Avengers compound shortly after the events of Age of Ultron, which is also where she first bonds with Vision. In doing so, it recontextualizes all of this from just being a fascination with American pop culture into an emotional through line throughout all of Wanda's loved ones and personal connections, and that is incredibly heartbreaking. Number 3. Wanda's Hex powers. Shortly after the first flashback we get of Wanda's childhood, which ends with Jesus Christ, the most brutal thing ever, we're shown the story Wanda first told in Avengers Age of Ultron about how the bombs that leveled her home were made by Tony Stark, and that she and her brother only survived because one failed to detonate. Now, this is meant to be a mixture of Agatha speculating and actual comics history, but she says to Wanda that the only reason she and Pietro survived was because she'd casted a probability hex on the bomb, thus ensuring it wouldn't detonate. And this is where things get dead confusing. Like, we're talking Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes level of confusing, because Marvel have retconned Scarlet Witch's powers and origins so many times in the comics that I'm not even sure which is the current version of her origins in this exact moment. Sometimes Magneto's involved, sometimes he isn't, sometimes the High Evolutionary is there, and sometimes my brain just likes to leak out of my nose when I begin to think about this stuff because, oh my god, it really doesn't make any sense. The point is, though, is that we're getting another retcon, but for the MCU this time, revealing how the Mind Stone didn't give Wanda her powers, but merely awakened them instead. That is in itself a funny sort of reference to the fact that the comics have done this multiple times before, but in regards to Wanda's sorcery powers specifically, there's another more important reference the episode includes. Number 2, the legacy of the Scarlet Witch. Now, just to confuse you further, in the comics, although she was initially a mutant, that was later revealed to have been a deception all along. In actuality, Wanda is an extremely powerful sorceress who, in the comics, was imbued with the power to manipulate chaos energy by the High Evolutionary and Chthon, who is like the Marvel Cthulhu, and oh dear god, it's a lot to deal with. One thing of key importance to the MCU right now, though, is the history of the Scarlet Witch mantle. In the flashback to Wanda's Hydra days, she encounters the Mind Stone and awakens her abilities. During the vision, she sees the silhouette of the classic Scarlet Witch outfit with the headdress and all, like the one she paid homage to in the Halloween episode from just a few weeks ago. Wanda describes her outfit in that episode as a quote-unquote traditional Sokovian fortune teller, but we now know that it goes much deeper than that. In the final confrontation of the episode, Agatha says that Wanda was truly meant to be a myth, a being of pure creation in her own words who wields chaos magic. She calls her the Scarlet Witch, and oh my god, we finally got them to say it! We finally got the MCU to say Scarlet Witch! I'm so happy. Now, this is obviously Wanda's superhero title in the comics, which is also a mantle passed down through multiple generations of Maximoffs. It's unclear how it'll work in the MCU as of yet, if there's only meant to be one Scarlet Witch prophesized, or if there have been many throughout history, sort of like in the comics, but this is still a really cool reveal, and one that could hopefully sort of maybe lead to an actual full-blown Scarlet Witch outfit in the future. One can only hope. And number 1, I Cant Feel You. So obviously one of the best things about WandaVision is all the theorizing and the fan theories and what it all means for the multiverse and so on, but at its core, the series is still a superb examination of trauma, loss, grief, and survivor's guilt. It's been emotionally raw to watch at times, and episode 8 was by far the most emotional, showing us Wanda's losses and the love she had for the loved ones that were so unfairly taken away. This reaches a tipping point once she confronts director Hayward at Sword, who is, oh my god, he's just awful. Like, whatever your thoughts on human-android relationships, buddy, you can't just call Wanda's literal loved one a weapon, reduce him to how much his parts are worth or whatever. Wanda has to see her actual partner torn apart on an operating table, and it is truly awful to watch. But I'm not trying to emotionally torture you here by reminding you of the most upsetting moment from the episode. There is an actual Easter egg here, and it comes when Wanda says enough is enough and jumps down to try and protect Vision's corpse. She puts her hand to his head and says, "I can't feel you." This is all pretty upsetting all on its own, but even more so when you remember the last words Vision ever said to Wanda in Avengers Infinity War right before he died was, "I just feel you." Again, WandaVision operates on an entirely other level of pain right now. It's so good, but also, dear God, my wee heart can only take so much. And those were 6 Easter eggs from WandaVision Episode 8. Were there any others that I missed? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and to subscribe to What Culture so you don't miss another upload going forward. I've been Ewan, and I will see you next time. Bye!